my legal knowledge would be required this evening. I thought it was just my communication responsibilities and the heart and interest that I have for the development of the Namibian chart that will come and play this evening. However, Article 95 is very clear, and what it does really, if you can put it less formal, is really a guide for what the Namibian state and the government of the day should aspire for. Because it states the kind of things that the Namibian state should ensure is in place. All aimed at ensuring that there is a decent livelihood for every Namibian. So it speaks to access to services, it speaks to access to whatever, the exercise of whatever rights and all that. The unfortunate part of it, unlike Chapter 3 of our Constitution, is that when there is a failure in implementing, in ensuring that that is maintained, there is no recourse, a similar recourse that is provided for in Chapter 3 of our Constitution, where you can now go to court to seek redress where there is failure. Unfortunately, that's the difference. So it's a very good guide, and all policies that the government of the day puts across should be anchored around the attainment of the ideals that are stated in Article 95. But whether you can go to court with it to compel the state or the government of the day to provide for the various things that are stated there, the answer then is found in Article 101 of our Constitution, and you can't. So that's where it ends. But like I say, if we were looking at what kind of state, at independence, what kind of state if we envisage ourselves to be as Namibia, 95 is a very good guide. It tells you what are the things that we should strive to attain. So I think otherwise, if I continue further than this, I'll be charging legal fees. Yes, my brother, the question around the Chinese businesses, and I saw that it drew interest in the House. Therefore, the response is also going to be one that is fitting the interest that it drew. I did make the point in my initial intervention that the space that we operate from would not have regard to what nationality you are. It has regard to compliance and non-compliance. But the point is being made that there is evident non-compliance here. What are you doing? Without having regard to the nationalities and what economic sector it is that the operators are operating from. And here you would have seen that we have already made the concession that compliance levels are not what they should be. I told you with regards to income tax and VAT, the compliance there, especially with income tax, is around 52%, 57%, which is not something that we are proud of. So what is our response to it as the Namibia Revenue Agency? Sometime around March this year, forced by this sad reality, we were then forced to, not really forced, but as a response, we then derived a compliance and enforcement strategy, which seeks to ensure that we are able to enhance compliance. Now, a compliance and enforcement strategy of that kind is not one that I'm going to speak to this evening, detailing to you what the elements thereof are. That is not an enforcement strategy. I guess we would agree. If I tell you what the elements are, then we are not going to enforce it. Because the people that we say will find them in Omoa, by the time we get there, they are already gone, if I was to give you the details. But it's a very sad situation because of the high level of non-compliance that exists. And the kind of businesses that you indicated, of course, as it relates to us, we would want to know what income did you generate for this year? And how do we establish that? We would only be able to establish that if you provide us your books. Now, in some of those businesses, the unfortunate part, reality there is that those books are not there, which then makes it very difficult for you to establish, as a business, do you qualify to register for VAT? And if you were registering for VAT, what is it that you do from those that bought the land over to the revenue agency or not. So yes, while we admit that there is a serious low level of compliance across the country, and obviously it is higher in certain kinds of businesses, the retail sector is one. We did a study which also shows that the fishing sector might also not be paying the right amount of tax that they should be paying over. And we know who operates in that space. Much of it, the right holders are not foreigners. So, yes, it is a concern, but it's a concern for which a response or a solution would not just be with the Namibia Revenue Agency. For instance, businesses do not register with us. They will be registering with paper. But some of those businesses do not even register and start trading without registration. So some of those road players also need to come to the fore. But it's a serious concern, and it's one that as the Namibia Revenue Agency, we are not going to run away from. What we are however cautioning is that we are not going to be party to a conversation that seeks to suggest that there is a certain group of people, nationalities, that we should be going after. And when we go out as the Namibia Revenue Agency, we are going to say we are going to go for these people from Orua. No, we're not going to be part of that. We will not stop people from driving those narratives, but we're obviously not going to be party to that narrative. I don't think that's the kind of Namibia that we want to see. We're definitely not going to be party to that. But where there is non-compliance, we say, yes, there is a need for us to enhance compliance so that we are able to collect. But also, possibly because we are a new agency, and we know that non-compliance is in many areas, what we're getting is that people would want to tell you that, no, don't focus here. You have not dealt with X, Y, and Z. Deal with X, Y, and Z. When we see that you are done with X, Y, and Z, you can come to us. If we subject ourselves to that, what are we going to be? So it's the unfortunate fact that while we might not be doing things at the pace and speed that people would want us to do them, we recognize that there is a problem. Compliance is very low, but we are going to ensure that we enhance enforcement, which then translates in greater compliance. I think that suffices the response for now. Very good. All I can do this evening is to tell you what the position is. What will be left to you is to whether you accept it as a position or not. In the event that you do not accept it, based on the facts that I'm presenting, you can give me or present to this House alternative facts, which speaks or suggests to a different scenario. Now, let me once again deal with the events of the 10th of May. And again, deal with the narratives that are being advanced. Unfortunately, the gentleman who asked the question was very wide. Has probably left the room. I would have wanted to respond to him so that he gets, but everybody else benefits from that. But I'll, in any case, just respond to that. He is saying, look, the order with me operators are not new businesses. So if I tell you that the cutoff time for the things that were destroyed was between 2015 and 2021. Those were the goods that were destroyed. It would have also possibly included goods confiscated from people operating from that space, because that is not a new business. I accept the fact that it's not a new business, but I'm putting it to you now to say, if you have evidence to show that amongst the things that were destroyed on the 10th of May were things of people operating in the space of order with me, please present that. But what I can dismiss now without any fear of contradiction is the narrative being advanced to say the target, the main group was that group. And I'm saying to you now that that is flawed. And then there is an issue, the things that you banned on the 10th of May. What we did on the 10th of May, in fact, leading to the 10th of May, we invited the media and we told them that we are going to carry out a distraction on the 10th of May. And this invitation went out on the 9th of May. The idea was that so that it is done in the open and everybody is able to see, who cares to see, how it is done. I can tell you now, nothing was banned on the 10th of May. The destruction method that was used there was different from burning. I know the unfortunate part was that there are certain media houses who did not attend the actual destruction. All they did was, referring to this operation, they went to their file materials. And in the pictures, you would be seeing things that are burning. There was no fire on that day. I could have told you what is the method that was used for destruction. The danger with that is that sometimes when you do so, when you reveal that, they say, because there could be people who are interested in recovering some of the materials that were destroyed, they will still want to take their chances and see, oh, if it was not bad, then maybe it might be there. So as much as I'm tempted, I would refrain from saying what was the method, but I can tell you now, there was no fire in that thing burning these things. Chinatown, and the narrative is, bluntly put, you are afraid of Chinatown. You don't go there. Yeah. Now the facts do not support that effect. Because among the things that were destroyed on the 10th of May were goods seized, confiscated from Chinatown. If you just do a simple, if you just do a, when you answer a question, allow yourself to also hear the response. You have your right to give up, but at least allow yourself to hear the response. If you do a simple Google search, you would see that we have done several operations under the Directorate of Customs and Excise, but together with other law enforcement agencies. Previous operations at Chinatown, amongst others, 2015, 2019. And remember the period that I'm referring to. So the narrative around Chinatown was fed. It's also fatally flawed. But like I told you, as an entity, as a national entity, we do not want to get to that discussion where we're discussing markets and nationalities. No, we're discussing compliance and non-compliance. Already I've made the concession that the compliance level is not at a point where it should be. Our response, we were almost mum on this issue. I don't know what is that supported by. After the operation was done, it was us, as the Namibia Revenue Agency, who released a statement indicating that this operation was carried out. Why did we do so? Besides telling you that we have destroyed goods kept in our warehouses for this period to this value, there was a need for us to put out an educative message out. One, to say, in terms of our law, counterfeit products are prohibited and they should not be allowed into the country. I'll in a moment speak to that now. So that's what we did. And we did that on the 10th of May. On the 13th of May, which would be the Friday of that week, we issued a subsequent statement, of course, responding now to the narratives that were being advanced. There is no media house in this country that between myself and the commissioner, we have not spoken to in the last 4 weeks regarding those issues. So I don't know what supports the fact that we have been silent on it. But in addition to that, on the 17th of May, we had an open stakeholders engagement in Hobabas, which was open, but also, of course, for those in that area, but also open for everybody because we were streaming it live. We did not end there. On the 14th of June, we also had an open stakeholders engagement here in Vendo, which was open to anything, discussion related to anything that we have done. So I would not agree with the notion that we've been quiet about it. We have been talking about it. What, however, I suspect has happened is that people were not agreeing with the things that we have put it for, and that is within their right. Our obligation will be to explain our position as a public entity, and I think we discharged that without any fear. There was an issue around China, and I think that is captured by what I have already indicated there. My brother with the green mask, as it was being said, when people were coming for you to be given a chance to speak, you are saying you lost your goods that you ordered. And I'm assuming you ordered these things last year. Because it couldn't have been this year and be part of those that were destroyed. I can now tell you, unfortunately, because of the narrative that was advanced, there would have been people who would have taken orders from people in respect of the things that they would say they were going to provide. Now, with this whole narrative that NamRA has banned all our things, instead of procuring or acquiring these things, what they would go and do to the clients is to say, those things are no longer coming. NamRA has taken those things, and you saw they banned all those things. That is an opportunity. Unfortunately, people saw that as an opportunity and utilized it. Unfortunately, and unfairly and unlawfully so. That is what happened. But if you would have ordered anything this year and you were expecting to get your stock and you did not get it, and people are telling you that it was confiscated by NamRA and it was banned or destroyed on the 10th of May, I can tell you now that is not true. Now, I think the principal question that we should be talking about is the treatment of counterfeit goods. Yes. What is a counterfeit good? A counterfeit good would be a production of a good or a brand by somebody else who is not the brand right holder without the authorization of the brand right holder. And in terms of our law, that is unlawful. And such goods may not be brought in the country. Are we saying as a state we should be amending the laws to allow for counterfeit goods to be produced? Remember, counterfeit goods does not only apply to foreign produced goods. There are people in this country who have got brands to which they have got rights to. Are we saying we should allow anybody who wakes up on any day to also counterfeit those brands, pirate their music, pirate whatever they're doing? Is that what we are advancing for? Thank you very much. Most certainly, we will be better than the departments, the two departments going forward. Obviously, the reality is that there are certain deficiencies that we need to get into our processes and as well as our systems. But definitely, the indications are that we are going to do better than the department. Hence, in fact, hence the creation of the entity. To give you just as an indication, for the past financial year, that would be 21-22, the target there, the revenue target as far as we're concerned was $49.4 billion that we're supposed to collect. At the end of that financial year, we collected $52.9 billion. So we had exceeded the target by about $3.5 billion. Now, this is a milestone achieved while we have not implemented any of the things that we intend to do. For instance, we have not even gotten real underway with regards to the recruitment process. Because at the moment, we need to absorb the staff that was previously with those two departments into our fold as employees of Namibia Revenue Agency. But they are performing that function so well, even when there is uncertainty around where they're going to be tomorrow in relation to their jobs. I spoke to you about the enforcement and compliance strategy that we have just approved and now are busy implementing. And as a result of that in part, you would have also seen the report that we indicated around the bribery attempt in relation to one of our officials. It was as a result of this enforcement steps that we have taken, remind us to say, but you're not compliant. And I guess those reminders led to somebody to think that to make the problem go away, maybe I should pay the official and I'll not be hearing from them anymore. So yes, there are those activities that we are undertaking that we then should hope that they will translate in certain efficiencies within our processes and systems. The target is normally determined by the Minister of Finance, as he then sets the fiscal position of the government, and we get it from there. But in terms of our strategic plan, obviously there are indicative figures to which we are working towards. And then whether we have a platform where we educate around imports and exports requirements related to that, yes, there are. In fact, the session that I referred to that we had on the 14th of June here in Beduk, and it's available on our Facebook platform because we're streaming it and you can still get it. We detailed those processes in respect of the importation of second-hand vehicles or even second-hand clothes, which is now a market that is really growing. You see people importing these vehicles, and even there in that process, when people try to avoid importing them at the rightful and lawful entry points, they are left then at the devices and the disposal of smugglers. And what they would do is that to get the bail from where it is imported from to Beduk, they would have paid many other people in the process because it's a process that is done in the dark, that there is no justice to that, and they are exposed to so many things. In the end, they are forced to sell those bills at prices that they might not even have buyers for those goods. But had they, for instance, paid what they are supposed to be paying at entry point, for instance, a bale would weigh around 45 or so kilograms. If you were to pay customs duty to get it out, it would probably cost you anything closer to 1,000. Now, people would not do that. In some instances, they would get somebody to smuggle and eat for them just across from the Angolan border into our border. They would have already paid around 500 or so. And now the destination is, for instance, Vedo or the coast. Even to get past Oshigelo, somehow that system, that network, has also created another stoppage. And they would need to part with some fund. At the end of the day, what they would have paid just to get their thing here, and even when it gets here, there are also elements that they would collude with, so that before they can take possession of this, they would also have to part with some of, give or take, they would have paid around 2,000 as opposed to the 1,000 that they would have paid at the moment. So those are all the educations that we are extending. And like I indicated, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll find that you'll be able to get what the requirements are. Moderator, agreeing to come here, I was, besides coming to obviously, there we have also recognized already that there is a problem with young people, especially those that remain in the village, while some of us are here in the cities. And we are looking at how do we assist them. And one thing that we have decided is to say, I think the best tool that you can give them is ensuring that they are skilled, to upskill them. At the moment now, we're looking at what are those, obviously we cannot take many because these are voluntary that we're doing that around. But we're looking at what are those programs and what kind of skills can you give them so that they are able to start doing certain projects on their own. And I must say I've done maybe not a good search at the moment, but I've not been able to come across programs that one can say these are suited for this. And once these guys have got the skills, they can be able to give themselves a livelihood. And that could vary from a gardening project. Many of them are farmers in their own right, but they are obviously not doing farming the way they should be doing. There could be so many other things that they could be producing. I was hoping that I would be benefiting a great deal from that, but it's not all lost because I think the discussion just told us that there are those for whom we can create employment and we should spare no effort to do so. But there are others maybe that the employment sector cannot absorb. Where they are, they should also be assisted so that they can contribute for themselves, but also for the overall of our economy. And I thought I should say that.